Hi, I'm Liz Dyer. I'm the founder of Real Mama Bears, an organization dedicated to supporting, educating, and empowering the LGBTQ plus community and families with LGBTQ plus members. I'm here today with two special guests, and we are going to be talking about navigating the holidays as a parent of a trans and or gender nonconforming child. Now, the holidays can be stressful for anyone for many reasons, but when you have a trans or gender nonconforming child in your family, you have other things to think about that most people don't have to think about. You have some challenges. You sometimes you have to make special plans and you have special considerations. The holidays are almost here, and I wanted to get together with two mama bears who have trans children, and I wanted to pick their brain and get some tips and insight from them so that we could make it easier and give some helpful information to other parents of trans kids. So let me introduce them, and we will dive right in. So first, we have Kristen Berglund with us today. Kristen's pronouns are she, her. Kristen is a licensed professional counselor in Texas and Oregon. Kristen's been in private practice for over 15 years, and she has experience working with LGBTQ plus teens, adults, and their families. And like I said, Kristen is a mom of a trans kid. She has a transgender son. Welcome, Kristen. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Liz.
And we have Mandy Giles with us today. Mandy's pronouns are she, her. Mandy is also the parent of trans children. She has two trans young adults. She is also the founder of Parents of Trans Youth. It's a social impact business that provides learning, support, and community to parents and caregivers of transgender kids. Mandy has spoken multiple times before the Texas Senate and House committees and at local school boards against bills and policies that target trans youth. She's also the host of the Everyday Trans Activism podcast. Welcome, Mandy, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I wanted to get together with some moms of trans kids and talk about the holidays because, like I said, the holidays can be stressful and especially challenging for families who have trans youth. And when I say trans youth, I'm also including gender nonconforming uh, youth because that brings the same kind of challenges in many cases. So let's dive back right in. And I think, the first thing that comes to mind with families is choosing where they're going to spend their holidays. Because a lot of times, where they spent their holidays before their kid came out as trans, before there was a transition taking place, you know, is going to be different than where they spend their holidays now. So dive right in. Kristen, what do you think about that? Is that something you hear a lot from families that you practice with?
Absolutely. And in fact, a story that I tell a lot about is about our first Thanksgiving after my son came out. He was 14, and we were supposed to go to my sister's house and have my mother and my sister and all the family there. And I asked my sister, hey, would you mind if we do it at my house instead? Because my son would be more comfortable there. He had his room there that he could, escape to if he needed to. And it kind of made me mad because my sister said, well, what about my kids being comfortable? And I said, you know what? My kid is uncomfortable in his own body every day. So I think we can make an exception here. And she backed down. She thought about it and she said, you're right. I'm sorry. Interestingly, that year we actually, my son and I got into a pretty bad car accident the day before we were supposed to have Thanksgiving, which it's sad, but it seems like it was a relief because we kind of got out of that one. But yes, absolutely. Since then, we've tried to host either at our house or even sometimes we go out of town and just skip the whole thing just to make sure that he's comfortable. Now, years later, we've really adjusted, but at first it was really tough.
Um, Mandy, what about you? Or have your holidays changed much, or have you been able to keep them pretty much the way they were?
We've been able to keep them pretty much the way they were before my kiddos came out, as they actually are non-binary. And I guess we're lucky because Thanksgiving is usually hosted or held at our house. And sometimes it's nice just to be on your turf. Um, for it makes my family more comfortable and more, I guess, confident, and just like a home field advantage kind of. And like Kristen said, that if my kids need to just cool off or just take a beat or whatever, then they can go to their rooms and just kind of chill out and then come back. Um, and then for our family celebrates Christmas, and this year we are not having it at my parents' house, but are moving it to either my house or my siblings. And so, again, it'll be just a much different experience to have it where my kids are most comfortable. And frankly, where all the cousins are more comfortable than my parents' house. We can get into this, I'm sure, but there's even without gender things going on in your family, there's also a lot of just other family dynamics that you have to kind of take into consideration.
Well, that's definitely true. Now, what would you, Mandy, say to a family that feels like it's just not safe to take their kids um, to a family gathering and during the holidays? Are they concerned about that because the family members that will be there aren't affirming and have demonstrated that, they may not even be kind about it?
Mhm. It's tough. Um, I would say you kind of have two options. And Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, jump in. One is if you are comfortable setting pretty strong boundaries with your family, and you think that they might uphold those boundaries by say, these are the non-negotiables that you will use my child's name, pronouns, and whatever else that your child wants to have happen, whether it's don't comment on their appearance or whatever. And if those things happen, this is what will happen. We will leave, or you will leave, or whatever it is. Um, or if you think that it is just not going to work at all, you may have to make the really, really hard decision to not go. And that's a lot easier said than done. And that might be the ultimate boundary, just to say, like, if this is not going to happen, we're not going to be able to participate this year. Um, and again, that's hard. It's a hard position for any family to be in, to have to sacrifice those times that maybe used to be really great and fun, but if they're not going to be great and fun and even unsafe for your child, safety is the biggest concern that you have to keep in mind.
And Kristen, one thing I wanted to ask you about is when you're setting boundaries, I wonder, do you involve your kid in that conversation, or does that depend on the age? I mean, would a child maybe not want to feel responsible for being the person that caused you not to get together with your family? How do you handle all that? It seems very complicated.
It is complicated, and I think you're absolutely right that it does depend on the age of the child. Young children already feel like they're responsible for everything in the world, and we don't want to put more responsibility on them. However, we can have conversations about how does it feel when we go to grandma's? How do you feel around certain people in the family? A lot of times, the younger kids, things can kind of just bounce off. They don't really understand the politics and all that fun stuff. Um, but older children, I think it's critical to have those conversations with them and to let them know that ultimately, if they are still a minor, you're the one making the decision. But we want their input. It's really important to know how they feel. And of course, if they're adults, it's even more important that they do have some input. And sometimes we need to say, you know what, it's okay if you want to spend the holidays somewhere else. If we feel obligated to go somewhere where you feel unsafe, because like Mandy said, safety is the absolute most important thing. And it's not just physical safety, it's also emotional safety. These kind of holidays can be very emotionally draining for trans people. And so we have to keep all of that in mind. And I think communicating with them is the best way to kind of cope ahead for the holidays.
Yeah, I love that. Looking at the age and the situation and really getting input. And I'm assuming it probably really helps if we're having these kind of open communication conversations all year long, not just around the holidays, about, how it feels when we see family, or maybe if we know family said something or made a mistake, just having all those kind of conversations. Because sometimes our families do want to try, but they're still making mistakes. And that can be difficult for our kids too.
Right.
Okay, so one thing that I think maybe might be important for families to talk about among themselves and with their kids is managing expectations. And like I said, sometimes even those who seem supportive do make some mistakes. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say sometimes I make a mistake when I'm referring to someone who has maybe I've known them and then they've transitioned, or maybe I'm just hung up on appearance sometimes. I mean, I'm sorry to say that I am a product of the world I've grown up in and lived in for most of my life. And sometimes I still make mistakes and I hate it when I do. But, is it important that we maybe have realistic expectations ourselves and help our kids have realistic expectations without justifying people that aren't trying? You know what I'm saying here? What do you think, Mandy?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think you've hit it on the head to kind of to manage those expectations, but also not justifying their harmful behavior, and again, keeping safety paramount. Something that we know in my family, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat, uh, that we know that my parents have gotten my kids' names right. They've gotten that, yay, and both of my kids use they them pronouns, and that is really hard for my parents. It's been many years and it's still kind of hard for them. And my kids know that when we get together with my family, and my kids are older, and so we talk about that beforehand, and really checking in with my kids all the time, like you said, not just during the holidays, and said, like, all right, they're probably going to use the wrong pronouns or use the wrong relative uh, noun. Instead of my grandchild, they might say a different word. How do you want to handle that? Do you want me to jump in? Do you want to jump in? Do you not want to say anything? And just for my family personally, again, with managing expectations just in families in general and stressful holidays, my kids have been like, you know what, let's just let it slide and have a non-stressful time at this event. And I know that that is not the case for every family at all. So yeah, and I think managing expectations just for holidays in general, the holidays are a stressful time, and everybody, I think, feels a lot of pressure to be happy and joyous. And this is going to be the best Christmas or Thanksgiving or Hanukkah ever. And those are really high expectations and probably unrealistic. So, not to take the joy out of the holidays, but just tempering those expectations a little bit and being more realistic, I think, could be helpful.
Yeah, I like that too.
Mhm.
I mean, I can be overboard about let's do everything right for our kids
Mhm.
because they face so many challenges and, you know, just in general on a daily basis, worrying about so many things as they go about their lives. But like you said, I mean, the holidays usually can be disappointing anyway, in some way, if we don't watch out. And so, taking that into consideration. What about that, Kristen? Any other insight that you could offer?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in real quick and just remind the moms and dads or parents who are kind of new to this that to do a check-in on what's going on with them too. The holidays are stressful, and stress makes us not as it's not just not as easy to deal with things as normal. And we may be really sensitive at first. We may be looking for people to be non-affirming. And
Mhm.
so we may get defensive and kind of jump on people unintentionally, people who are actually trying really hard and just getting it wrong. And so, kind of taking some breaths before you go into the holiday gathering and doing a check in and saying, you know what, let's give people grace. Let's practice self compassion and let's practice compassion because, this stuff is not easy. It's hard when you've known somebody by a certain name or pronoun for, in our case, 14 years to all of a sudden change, even though he didn't look any different at that point. So it's important to just keep love in mind, keep compassion in mind, unless somebody is intentionally trying to harm your child, maybe take a step back and just move on. Like you said, Mandy, let's just move on.
Yeah, maybe someone could say something like, I'm always better if I prepare ahead of time. Well, I got something in my back pocket I'm going to say if this happens. So, what do you think? Could someone say something like, Oh, I know that it's hard sometimes when you're still getting accustomed to the new pronouns that we have introduced. I've made mistakes myself, but I wanted to remind you that my child's pronouns is they, them, or she, her, or he, him,
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Mhm.
And, maybe have a little approach with some empathy. Like, I understand that this is hard for you, and I know you're trying. And I really appreciate that. So I don't want you to be embarrassed when I correct you, but I think part of the learning process is if someone reminds us when we get it wrong. I know that really helped me when I was learning.
Mhm.
What do you think about something like that? If someone decides they're going to say something when the mistake is made.
Mhm. I think that's a great idea. And uh, to literally practice that beforehand. I tell the parents that I work with to, when you're talking about your child, or introducing them, and then in other situations, to have like your one sentence and just practice it in the mirror. And this can be the same kind of situation where, depending again on your family dynamics, to say something just like what you said. Or if your family maybe really is trying and they want to get it right, and maybe you have the right family dynamic, you could even make it, I don't know, a little fun in a way, like okay, gotta, almost like I've heard people do like a swear jar, but with misgendering jar, and like, oh, put the token in or whatever. Um, I heard an urban legend. I'm not sure if this is true, that somebody used an air horn at Thanksgiving, and each time they used the wrong name, and the family got it really quickly. I'm not sure I'd recommend that, but again, yeah, to have a plan, and even talk to relatives beforehand and say, hey, exactly what you said. I know this is kind of hard, and but we're all going to be using these pronouns because it's really important to my kid.
Okay, let's say this happens. Let's say you go to a family member's home for the holiday. And you've already, laid out some boundaries, but things don't go well. Somebody that's there says something that's transphobic and hurtful. Or let's say that it's maybe even so vague that maybe not everybody noticed it, or maybe only one person was in the room when it happened. I've heard people talk about having like some kind of code word or code sentence. What do you think? Or do you just be upfront and say, I don't like what's happening here. I'm going to leave. I mean, what do you think? Kristen, you jump in on this.
So I think one thing that's important to keep in mind is like, again, the age of your child. Teenagers will die if you make a big deal out of something. They will want to disappear into the ground. And so there's a couple of things that we recommend. Number one, the code word is an excellent one. Even a code gesture like this, if your child is kind of stuck in a conversation with somebody who's being unaffirming or asking a lot of questions that are really uncomfortable, that you can kind of go over and rescue them. Or there might even be a code for I need to leave. This is too much, and then you make your excuses and go. The other thing that we suggest is enlisting an ally to help out. So maybe your cousin or aunt, Betty, or somebody is super affirming and really good with this stuff. Ask them to kind of, if something cringy happens or if they notice anything, they can take another person aside and say, you know what, that's not cool. This is maybe harming this child. And that kind of takes some of the pressure off of us. It can also be great if you're hosting to invite what I call a buffer person, which is, for us, my best friend is a buffer person. Like, everybody's on their best behavior when she's around. I don't know why. She's just wonderful and everybody loves her. And so they can kind of take some of the pressure off as well. So those are just some ideas that we present in our normal talk every year.
Oh, I love that. That's really good advice. Thank you so much. Um, okay, so let me ask you about this. A lot of times when we get together with people that we haven't seen a lot, they have a lot of questions. Maybe they're affirming, but they have a lot of questions. So, Mandy, what would you say to parents of trans and non-conforming gender non-conforming kids about educating other people? Are they obligated? How should they handle that?
Great question. And I think you hit on the crux of the issue with the obligation that transgender people, just in general, and transgender kids are never obligated to explain anything about themselves to anyone. And that includes, I think, parents too, that there is no obligation and no one else is entitled to that information. And it may feel like people are like, well, I need to know this or I need to know this. But that's something that's important to keep in mind. And so that could kind of help keep families grounded in that way. Um, if you feel like you want to educate, like you've got the spoons to do that, then you can have something again prepared to just say, well, this is how we're doing this, and XYZ, or this is our what the decision is, and or we support our kid, whatever it is. And again, if you feel like the conversation is kind of going in a direction where you don't want to answer those questions, then you can say, you know what, that's pretty private, and so we're just going to keep that private for now. Or depending on the situation, if it's maybe a larger gathering, if you're at a party or something, then I just change the subject, or just like, you know what, I've got to go. I'm going to go check out the food, or or really just leave. Um, I think so. And so, if you are in the situation where you really do want to educate people, that's okay. But just know that you're never obligated to do that.
So, Kristen, I've heard that some families would do this, like kind of send some kind of email or something with a little bit of education before they're going to all get together. Have you ever done anything like that or known families that do that? What do you think about that?
I have actually done that. My family, my mom's family, she's got five younger brothers and they live all over the world. And so we all get together every 3 years for a reunion and with the cousins and everybody, and it can be pretty overwhelming. And so I sent a message out to all the cousins and all the aunts and uncles saying, this is where we are. this is what I'm asking you to do, and here's a little bit more information. And if you have questions, come to me before the reunion when my child isn't present there. The other idea I have that might be helpful for these holiday gatherings is to print up a card or something with resources on it. And to say, if people are asking you questions, say, I am so happy that you're interested in this. Here are some books and some articles and some websites where you can get all those questions answered. And then just leave it at that.
I love that. I love that. You guys are great. I'm telling you, really great. Okay. What about those that have to start new holiday traditions? Uh, you know, it can be really hard, like you said, Mandy, to say, I'm not going to attend these traditional family gatherings that we have. But, as parents of trans kids, I think, maybe we could approach it in a way that, okay, we're not going to do that, but we can still have great holidays. We can still have fun. Any ideas about that, Mandy?
Yeah, definitely making new traditions can be super fun. And really it's kind of like a blank slate in a way that you can even involve your family. Like, what should we do this holiday? And even for, I know families who have had to relocate from, say, states that were not welcoming to trans kids, then they have really had to make new traditions and explore their new environment and their new community, which was in a way kind of fun, like hard, yes. And well, in our new place, we can go look at lights in this neighborhood that's supposed to be really cool, or heard about this neat cookie baking contest or whatever it is. And to be able to still have again that joy and the togetherness, even if it's with just your nuclear family or whatever family members that you have gathered with you to be supportive, and there can still be that joy and that, I say, wonder and surprises during the holidays with my kids.
And, that's one thing that can be really good about, I know Kristen and I were talking earlier about local community and how important that is for us right
Mm-hmm.
now. And that's one thing that can be really good about local community is there might be other families who maybe don't feel comfortable doing the traditional things. And so maybe some of these, families can get together and do something together. Kristen, have you ever heard about families doing that?
Absolutely. And I wanted to mention too, sadly, I've worked with several families who have had to either go no contact with extended family or have been, shunned by family for religious reasons or other reasons, just not understanding, disagreeing with how they're affirming their child, that sort of thing. And I think for the LGBTQ community, they're very familiar with having chosen family. In addition, there are always young people who have been kicked out by their families or who are not able to return home. One thing that we like to do every year, my son's in college and it's local to us now. And so he is in a non-gendered fraternity where there are a lot of LGBTQ trans kids. And so we try to invite all of them who don't have somewhere to go to come over and spend the holiday with us. And in that way, we have our own tradition, and it's so special and so wonderful. We're far away from our extended family now. And so that's just been our new tradition is trying things like that.
I love that. And we do have the Mama Bears to the Rescue program, and a lot of Mama Bears who volunteer for that are open to having LGBTQ plus people join them for their holiday celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
There was one family, Mama Bear family, a few years ago, and somehow she connected. Through our program with a young man who was in college, and his boyfriend didn't have supportive family, and he wanted to take his boyfriend home with him, and his family said no. And so she had them come and spend the holidays several days with her family, and she always bought matching pajamas for her whole family, and she even bought them for these two guys, and shared the picture, and it just made me cry. It's just so wonderful to see that kind of love and support where, people are willing to not only support their own kids who are members of the LGBTQ community, but to spread that love and support outside of their family. And I think that's something that's really common in the LGBTQ plus community with families who have LGBTQ plus members, the way we all want to take each other in and care for each other and support each other. So I'm glad you brought that up, Kristen. Chosen family. Yeah, that's something that LGBTQ plus members are very, um, you know, uh, familiar with, and it's really important in many, many cases. We always like to say, as mama bears, we know we can never replace anyone's parents, and we're not trying to do that, but we want to be a loving presence in the life of those in the community, that need that, that want that. So, yeah, support and encouragement for others is just so important. Okay, so one of you kind of touched on this. I think it was you, Kristen, but let's talk about self-care a little bit. It's always important, but I think especially something we have to keep in mind over the holidays. So, what about self-care for the parent of a trans or gender non-conforming child? Look, I got it right that time. It's a
Chris,
mouthful.
yeah, Kristen, I know you are an expert in this. I'm going to let you take the lead on
Yes, I love to talk about self-care because
Mhm.
it is so important, especially around the holidays, for everybody to practice additional self-care. And so some of that is just going back to basics, like making sure that you're getting enough sleep, making sure that you're eating healthful food in addition to all the other stuff that we eat around the holidays. Make sure that you're getting some exercise. Limit alcohol and drugs. I mean, that can really add to stress over the holidays. And if you need to, go talk to somebody, talk to a friend, make an appointment with your therapist. Just, make sure that you are doing things that really replenish you and make sure that you're kind of at your best so that you can help your child.
Anything you want to add to that, Mandy?
I had the vision of putting your oxygen mask on first before you can help others. So I think, yeah, definitely, Kristen. And I think kind of the theme that we've been talking about here is planning and managing expectations. So even going into a family gathering or an event too, you can have those plans. Everything that we've been talking about, the the way that kids can care for themselves, you can do the same. That you can say, gosh, I really need to take a walk and enjoy the air. And if you're like, I need to get away from, Uncle so and so, or just chill out. Or, I mean, go take a nap in the back bedroom or whatever you need to do to collect yourself, or even have a friend, like someone that you'll text if things get a little dicey, or like you have a plan that someone will send you funny memes or whatever it is, and then you can just have a little bit of laughter, a little bit of joy when you open your phone in the bathroom or whatever it is.
I love that. Um, what else? Kristen, I'm going to open the floor to you. What have we not covered today that you would like to say to families who have trans kids or gender nonconforming kids? Any other tips, insight, just words of encouragement?
Sure. Well, one thing that I know we haven't discussed that's important to keep in mind is that there tend to be a lot of gendered things around the holidays. And especially for trans kids who are using new names, new pronouns, it's important to maybe talk to family ahead of time about not buying gendered gifts. Or if they do, using, the correct gender, it may be time to pull out all the old stockings that are embroidered with their dead name and update those, and either put those away. It's important to have a conversation with your child too about how comfortable they are having pictures of themselves at younger ages, because that can be very triggering for them during the holidays. I think it's also really important to check in on older kids after the holidays, especially kids who are off in college or who are living on their own now. You know, depression is a very real thing. Post-holiday depression is a very real thing. And so, they may be struggling after a holiday, especially if they're hearing a lot of, misgendering or negative talk about trans people. So checking in and just making sure that they're okay, I think is really important as well. So those are a couple of things that I like to keep in mind. I also like to keep in mind that it's going to be okay. I think this year especially has been pretty difficult and scary, and so we need to stop and take a breath, and at the holidays really look around and just notice the joy, notice that we're with our families and we're okay. We're all okay. We're all together, and we're good now. so that's my last statement, I think.
Yeah, for as much as we need to plan, we also have to enjoy one day at a time, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%.
Okay, Mandy, what else you got to offer today? I tell you, I'm so grateful for you. Like I said earlier, I learned so much from you, so I appreciate everything you have to give to us.
Oh goodness, no pressure. Well, to kind of piggyback on what Kristen said, I think that stuff with kids' names on them, it really can be. I want to acknowledge that that can be hard for parents. That all the little ornaments, the stockings, different faith traditions, menorahs, or whatever it is, those can be very, very sentimental. And because maybe they were gifts or you got them on vacation or whatever it is, maybe they have like baby footprints on them or whatever. Um, and so so it is hard. And so something that we've been talking about too is kind of give yourself a little grace and be like, all right, this is kind of hard, but this is what my kid wants. So maybe put all that stuff in a box. If that's what your kid wants, put it away. You don't have to go incinerate everything necessarily. And I think it's important not to oh gosh, how shall I say it? It's like wallow in that. I have heard stories of families that go to that box and like, oh, it's so sad. And it is sad, and that's not helpful for anybody. So just put those away. And then again, the new traditions, maybe everybody in your family gets a new stocking this year. Or there was one year when I got my kids new ornaments with their new names on them that were really cool and funky. And so that was fun too. And that communication as well. Like my kids were okay, and every year I ask, and they're 22 years old. Every year I'm like, "Are you still okay with this ornament? Is this okay on the tree? Is this one okay?" And some I can be surprised. Like they're like, you know what, that one doesn't make me feel good anymore. Let's put that one away. Or, yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about it. So I think that is important. And yeah, like Kristen said, just finding the joy and living in the present. And yeah, it's really easy to get wrapped up in things that might or might not happen in the new year. That can be kind of scary for our families, but finding that joy and being the present and just yeah, and enjoying the time that you do have with your kids.
I love that. Okay, we're going to finish up with this. Let's give some tips to extended family members and to friends who want to provide safe, inclusive places for our trans and gender nonconforming kids. So, Kristen, you go first. What tips would you give to other people, like outside, of your immediate family, who really want to do the right thing? What's one or two or three things that they should do or think about?
That's a great question and one that I haven't really thought of before. I think number one, practice. practice the new names and pronouns, as as you go along. When I was first starting out with the new name and pronouns, I would say, okay, now I'm doing my son's laundry and I'm going into my son's to his room, and just kind of really, really practicing that ahead of time
I love that.
can be very helpful. Displaying some, also displaying some affirming things in your house,
Mhm.
a flag, maybe a sign, or something that with the trans colors or non-binary colors of the flag. Um, that's a really good way to show that your home is an affirming and safe place. Um, Learn, educate yourself beforehand. Know, what might be triggering for a trans person, what topics not to talk about. Um, Turn off the TV maybe when they come over. Even inadvertently, we can have things on the television that are hurtful or harmful. And talk to your family, your family unit about this is what's happening. We want to make this an affirming place. Let's practice. Let's make sure that we're prepared to provide a safe space for this person because we love them.
I love that. Thank you. Mandy, what would you like
Hmm.
extended family members and friends to do if they were really, passionate about providing a safe
Mhm.
place for your kids and your family?
Oh, Kristen covered so many good things. I would say something again that Kristen touched on earlier about holidays being very gendered. Um, so, say if you are having a holiday party and you've got activities for the kids, and a lot of times you'd be like, oh, boys choose these things and girls choose these things, or maybe it's gingerbread boys and gingerbread girls, or men and women, or whatever. And like, let's make some gingerbread people, or maybe not, maybe teddy bears, or whatever it is, and just get the gender out of it. So that's just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Or if you maybe I know sometimes grandparents want to do holiday pictures with the whole family and really want everybody to look a certain way or wear matching certain things. And it can take a lot of grace for other people to recognize that um, not everybody is going to look the way that you would want them to look. And even if it doesn't have a picture opportunity involved in it, to just accept people, how they are, how they look. Maybe that hair color that is on your grandchild is not what you would choose, but just maybe zip it for now. Or maybe your child has other body modifications like tattoos or piercings. I know that's the case with my kids, and I think it's helpful not to like comment on those kind of things if they are unfamiliar to you, or just be like, "That's super cool," and then do your own processing later. Um, yeah, I think that, and that signaling support is always good. If you just have one little pride flag or progress flag somewhere in your house, if that's where you are in your journey, or just to treat everybody kind of I wouldn't say the same, but including everybody in everything. And I think that kind of covers a lot.
Yeah, you both made me think about, I think there's some nutcrackers out now that are
Oh,
LGBTQ plus themed and trans themed. So even
mhm.
something like that, a little
Yeah.
decoration. I know I
Hmm.
have decorations on my Christmas tree that, are affirming of the different people in the community. So
Hmm.
if you go on Etsy these days, you can find just about any
Hmm.
kind of ornament that you want. So yeah, order an ornament or two to put on your tree that,
Hmm.
is the trans colors or even the pride flag, something that shows that, you are an inclusive person. I love that. I hadn't thought
Hmm.
about that, but that's great. Thank you both so much. Like I said, you're so valuable to the Mama Bear community. We really appreciate your insight, your wisdom, and we learn so much from you. And I hope we can get together and talk about other things in the future.
Thank you, Liz. We appreciate you too.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, and thank you for what the Mama Bears do for so many parents in the community.
Thanks. Okay, everyone out there, we're going to close out. I'll be putting some links in the comments and the description of this so that you will know how to get in touch with Mandy and Kristen. If you have other questions, feel free to put them in the comments and one of us will do our best to answer them. Um, Happy holidays. Stay strong, keep connecting with one another, keep spreading love. I still believe that together we can change the world. Bye.